Welcome to the Explainer. If you've ever felt completely burned out by the modern rat race, that endless, exhausting pressure to achieve, to outshine your peers, and to just keep climbing that ladder of success, then the philosophy we're unpacking today is going to be incredibly fascinating for you. We're looking at a text by Zui Feng called Standards of Perfect Human Nature, and it presents a worldview that completely abandons the pursuit of victory. Instead of giving you tips on how to win the game of life, it's actually asking you to stop playing it altogether. So let's dive into this radical, non-competitive philosophy and see how it completely redefines a successful human existence.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by defining perfect human nature and looking at its 8 essential conditions. From there, we'll talk about moving beyond winning and losing, rejecting secular standards, adopting a non-competitive mindset, and finally, looking at life's ultimate equalizer. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Defining perfect human nature, the ultimate goal. So, what are we actually talking about here? Well, according to the source material, perfect human nature isn't just some abstract, nice-to-have ideal. It's a mandatory prerequisite. For you as an individual, it's basically the only ticket to what the text calls the supreme life space. But looking at the bigger picture, the macro level, it's absolutely essential for global justice, peace, and happiness. The text argues that without this nature, humanity is pretty much doomed. We're trapped in this highly unstable, perpetual roller coaster of ups and downs, driven entirely by competition, confrontation, and endless conflict.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 8 essential conditions, essential prerequisites.
Now, what's really interesting is how the text takes this massive overarching philosophical goal and breaks it down into 8 distinct rules. These are basically the foundation for this alternative lifestyle. Let's run through them. Revering the creator, gods, and other people. Having no mind of losing and winning. Revering nature. Being modest, trustworthy, and honest. Being compassionate. Remaining calm in both good and bad times. Conforming to the laws of nature. And lastly, loving life and loving labor. But for the purpose of our explainer today, the absolute crucial point is condition number 2, the rejection of winning and losing and totally abandoning the combatant mind. This is where the text really digs in with its practical advice, and it's exactly where we're going to focus our deep dive right now. Which brings us to Section 3, Beyond Winning and Losing, the Flawed Pursuit.
The source material really doesn't pull any punches when it comes to ambition. Grinding your whole life for money, wealth, fame, status, or just trying to secure a victory to leave your name in the history books? The text says that is entirely backwards. It literally calls it putting the cart before the horse, because according to this philosophy, the true meaning of life is pursuing truth and sublimating your personality. Everything else, the wealth, the status, that relentless drive to win, is nothing but the cumbersome rubbish of life.
And to give this concept some serious spiritual weight, the text actually points to Shakyamuni Buddha. It highlights his declaration of achieving a passionless state. By bringing this up, the author is directly connecting our chaotic modern struggles to ancient wisdom. It reinforces this idea that those who completely abandon competition, who simply have zero preference for winning or losing, are essentially akin to living Buddhas, celestial beings, or the truly great figures of history. So reaching the state of no win and no lose is not framed as giving up or failing at life. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. The text defines it as the absolute highest ideal of being human. When you reach this perfect indifference to winning, the philosophy states that you actually transcend life and death, entirely ending the cycle of rebirth. It is, for all intents and purposes, the ultimate spiritual graduation.
All right, Section 4, rejecting secular standards, choose your own standards.
You can really see the stark contrast here between the two paths we're presented with in life. On one hand, you have secular standards. These demand that you bend the knee to society, cater to vanity, and basically act as a slave to money or status. On the other hand, you have perfect standards. This path is all about pursuing truth, securing your existence through good, honest labor, and just fulfilling your duties without any pride or need to dominate anyone else. The text practically begs the reader to choose their own standards, not the ones society forces on them. And I love how the text illustrates this using these incredibly vivid natural analogies. Think about it like this. If you happen to be a piece of grass, you have absolutely no business envying the tall, upright poplars or the delicate peonies. And conversely, if you're a rose, you shouldn't be out there laughing at the small grass or the dull willows. The message is crystal clear. You are unique. You have every right to live at your own pace without comparing your inherent natural self to the nature of others. The text also makes a really fun point about worldly titles.
Even if you've earned a prestigious title through hard labor, it absolutely shouldn't restrict you from experiencing natural joy. It gives a few highly specific and pretty memorable examples. Like, you shouldn't avoid playing a round of golf simply because you happen to be a president. You shouldn't stop fishing just because you won a Nobel Prize. And, perhaps most surprisingly, you shouldn't forbid yourself from lying naked in an outdoor bath simply because you hold the title of a moral master. The takeaway? Do not let external labels box in your authentic life.
Section 5, the non-competitive mindset. Zero competition life. Now, this all brings up a really important question, right? What does a life entirely without competition actually look like in practice? I mean, it's easy to talk about being a piece of grass or a rose, but how do you actually navigate a modern career or your studies or your relationships with a zero competition mindset? Well, the source material synthesizes this down into some highly actionable behaviors. First, you start by actively avoiding any activity that is characterized by winning and losing. Just opt out. Second, you stop judging people's worth based on their secular success or failure. Third, instead of plotting or competing for resources, you simply take what naturally belongs to you through your own honest work. And finally, the real kicker. When the people around you are completely consumed by their interests and desires, you just stand aside calmly and watch, completely indifferent to the chaos. And speaking of chaos, the text strongly rejects the whole survival of the fittest mentality. In fact, it compares human competition to uncivilized animal combat. It argues that there's basically zero difference between humans fighting for success and flies frantically swarming for blood, or ants battling over a crumb of food, rats viciously biting each other, or dragons and tigers clashing. The author notes that all this aggressive fighting for victory lacks any true civilization. It's just base, chaotic noise. And that brings us to our final section, number 6. Life's ultimate equalizer, the illusion of winning.
The Stoic philosophy offers this incredibly calming, big-picture perspective. It says that the ups and downs, the frustrations, and the crazy, torturous paths you experience, they are nothing but pure ornaments of your life. They're just decorations. They are not actual measures of success or failure. Because of this, you really shouldn't be overwhelmingly happy when you have a success, and you certainly shouldn't cry over your failures. Circumstances alter, and fortune is always, always changing.
Which leaves us with this profound final question, posed directly by the text itself. Everyone must go empty-handed in the end. So what is the point to fight and show off? Since absolutely no one knows what tomorrow brings, we are literally all just floating clouds or leaves in the autumn breeze, the text leaves us with this powerful reframe. Why exhaust your precious, limited time rolling around in the mud of earthly disputes when you could simply walk your own journey at your exact own pace? It's a wildly compelling lens through which to view our modern lives for sure. All right, that wraps up our explainer for today. Thank you so much for hanging out and learning with us, and we'll see you on the next one.